Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, good morning. We are from 7 group, I guess, consisting of me, Ferdina, Alivia, and Riris. Well, finally we got our chance to present our material is the assessing speaking skill. So thank you very much to the honorable lecturer, Miss Vega, and to all my friends who are willing to attend today. And I wish you in a good day. And let's get started. As you can see, speaking is a difficult thing to judge, right? By O'Malley and Birch found there are three challenges faced by teacher: assessing, choosing activities, timing, and evaluating. So here we will discuss some steps in the assessment and selection of speaking test material. And on this slide, there is a basic type of speaking. There is imitative, intensive, responsive, interactive, and extensive. Okay, I'm gonna read all of this. For the first one is imitative. At the end of a continuum of types of speaking performance is the ability to simply parrot back a word or phrase or possible a sentence. While this is a purely phonetic level of oral production, a number of prosodic, lexical, grammatical properties of language may be included in the criterion performance. The second one is intensive. A second type of speaking frequently employed in assessment context is the production of short stretches of oral language designed to demonstrate competence in a band of grammatical, phrase, uh, lexical, or phonological relationships. The third one is responsive. Responsive assessment tasks include interaction and test comprehension, but at the somewhat limited level of very short conversation, start greeting, small talk, simple requests and comments, and like that. The number four is in interactive. The difference between responsive and interactive speaking is the length and com- complexity complexity of I don't know how to say complexity of the interaction, which sometimes include multiple exchange and or multiple participant. Interaction can take the two form of transitional language, which has the purpose of exchanging specific information, or interpersonal exchange, which have the purpose of maintaining social relationships. And at the last but not least is extensive or monologue. Extensive oral production tasks include speech, oral representation, and storytelling, during which the opportunity for oral interaction from listener is either highly limited, perhaps to nonverbal responses, or ruled out together. And then it will be continued by my friends, by Riris or Alivia. Thank you.
Okay, the next is about micro and macro skill of speaking. A list of listening micro and macro skill enumerates the various components of listening that make up the criteria of assessment. The first is about the micro skill. Micro skill is refers to producing the smaller chunks of the language, such as phoneme, morpheme, word, and etc. For the example, uh, Produce English stress patterns, word in stressed and unstressed positions, rhythmic structure, and intonation contours. You may see that the micro skill is focused on the word that we use. And then for the micro skill is focused on the speaker's fluency, discourse, function, style, communication, and etc. And for the example is use appropriate style, register implicator, redundancies, pragmatic conversation rules, floor keeping, interrupting, and other social-linguistic features in face-to-face conversation. And the micro skill is focused on how we use the sentence while we speak. Okay, the next is about step in assessing speaking. There are some steps that teachers should do before assess the student in the class. And the first is identify the purpose of speaking assessment. When the purpose of the speaking assessment already based on the learner needs and individual language assessment profile are combined, this will help teacher to produce an appropriate instructional goals, objective, and assessment activities. That's why identify the purpose before do the assessment in the class is important. And then the next is planning speaking assessment. There are several steps regarding to planning in speaking assessment. The first is identify the instructional activities or tasks, and the second is outlining the major instructional goals or learning outcomes and matching these to the learning activities and performance task. And the third is deciding whether or not to make an audio or video recording of student performance, and then deciding how often to collect information, and the last is deciding when and how to provide learners with the feedbacks. And the last step is designing test rubric. Test rubric is consists of the criteria that teacher needs when they want to assess their student. For the example is rubric test usually consists of pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, fluency, listening comprehension, and appropriateness. So this rubric will help the teacher to make a score based on the criteria that they need when assess the student about the materials. Go to the next material is about how to design assessment task, especially in intensive types. There are several kind of tests that are related with the intensive types. The first is direct response task. This task is just the teacher will give this question to the student directly, and the student have to respond directly the question from the teacher. And the second is read aloud task. It's just like the teacher will ask their student to read some sentences in the books, and after that the student have to do what the teachers ask. And the third is picture cue tasks. This is one of the more popular ways to elicit the oral language performance in intensive levels. This picture is stimulus that requires a description from the test taker. There are some kinds of picture cue tasks such as picture cue elicitation of minimal pairs. In this test, its administrator point to each picture in series by using question "What is this?" And then the second is picture cue elicitation of the response and description. In this kind of test, the test taker will describe what does the picture about, and then the student will guess the point of the text that described by the teacher. Next is about designing assessment tasks for the imitative types. For the imitative types also have several types of tasks that related with the imitative type. The first is repetition word. Repetition word is just like the teacher will ask the student to repeat the word that this teacher say before, like the teacher will say good morning and the student will answer good morning, like that. So the student will learn about how to pronounce the word based on the pronunciation from the teacher. And the next is pond pass test. Pond pass test is the test that is happen in the different place, like the teacher and the student will have a different place, and then the test is done in media such as computer, handphone, and so on. And the activity just like usual, will teacher will guide the student, will give the instruction about the test on the telephone, and then the student will give the response on there also. For the examples, like the test taker will say some word to the student, and then the student will repeat the sentences dictated over the phone. And also the teacher will give a random word to the student, and the student should write down the word that the teacher state on the phone, and then after that the student will arrange the word in the correct order. So this pond pass is just have the similarity with the repetition word, but the difference is just in the media. Okay.
So the next is designing assessment tasks responsive. The first, there is question and answer. Question and answer tasks can consist of one or two questions from an interview, or they can make up a portion of a whole battery of questions and prompts in an oral interview. This one, for example, like a short conversation or a short dialogue between two people. Here we can make an example from the teacher would ask about something to the student and the student will respond what they know about the question. So the second is giving instruction and direction. In our daily life, we read instruction on how to operate an appliance or how to put a bookshelf together or how to create a delicious clam chowder. So this test is giving an instruction to the student. For example, we ask them to describe how to make a typical dish from your country. And maybe we can ask about what is the best recipe for making ice cream or instant noodle. And the next is paraphrasing. This one is actually the example is like the student will hear an audio and then they have to listen carefully to it, and then they will summarize the audio into two or three sentences at least. And the last, there is test of spoken English. The example is this: the student will provide it by a test. It's like a TOEFL or TOEIC test. So the teacher can analyze how good the student about their speaking. So the next, there is designing assessment task interactive. The first, there is interview. Teacher and student gather in face-to-face exchange and proceed through a protocol question and directive. The interview, which may be tape recorded for re-listening, is then scored on one or more parameters such as accuracy, pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, task accomplishment, comprehension, etc. The second, there is role play. Techniques in role play are proved to be effective in assessing speaking in the classroom. These activities are authentic because they involve language used in context. As an assessment device, a role play opens some windows of opportunities for the student to use discourse that might otherwise be difficult to elicit. The third, there is discussion and conversation, assessing the performance of the student while discuss the topic that given by the teacher. Fourth, there is games. This is a type of speaking assessment device which is informal and brings the student in relaxed and enjoyable situation during the test. The games is like crossword puzzle, tinker toy, etc. Fifth, there is oral proficiency interview. The test taker is interviewed by a certified ACTFL tester. During the course of the interview, the interviewee is guided to engage in a variety of tasks such as describing, narrating, and hypothesizing. The score will be divided into superior, advanced high, advanced mid, advanced low, intermediate high, intermediate mid, intermediate low, novice high, novice mid, and novice low. The last is designing assessment extensive speaking. So the first is there is oral presentation. In the academic and professional arenas, it will not be uncommon to be called on to present a report, a paper, a marketing plan, a sales idea, a design of a new product, or a method. Usually, to assess the oral presentation, we use a checklist. The checklist box contains such as how good the content by the speaker are and how good is the delivering the speech. The next is picture cue storytelling. One of the most common techniques for editing oral production is through visual pictures, photograph, diagram, and charts. We have already looked at this elicitation device for intensive tasks, but at this level we consider a picture or a series of pictures as a stimulus for a longer story or description. So here, the student will tell the story that the picture provided, and they will tell the story by the image that has been provided by the teacher. Retelling a story or news. In this type of task, test taker hear or read a story or news event that they are asked to retell. This differs from the paraphrasing task discussed above, in that it is a longer stretch of discourse and a different genre. The objective in assigning such a task vary from listening comprehension of the original to production of a number of oral discourse features. Fluency and interaction with the hearer. Scoring should of course meet the intent criteria. The last is translation. Here, longer texts are presented for the test taker to read in the native language and then translate into English. Those texts could come in many forms: dialogue, direction for assembly of a product, a synopsis of a story or play or movie, direction on how to find something on a map, and other genre. The advantage of translation is in the control of the content, vocabulary, and to some extent, the grammatical and discourse features.